And I'll minimize that. All right, I'm all set. All right, so looking at who we have on Vassal, and it looks like all of the names are in here in Discord, so that's good. I think everybody's hearing us. I do see one Mike Lemke, who had just emailed me today about joining the tournament. It's in the main room, so hopefully he'll get in here shortly too. But so yeah, welcome to everybody who is watching. And again, like I said, I'm recording this, so I will post this on YouTube afterwards, and you can go back and look and review it if you want to replay and go back to see anything you might have missed live. But so I'm here. I'm Rob Doan. I'm the one who's running the tournament. I think most of the people watching here are in the tournament, but anybody is certainly. This is not just for tournament participants. We're kind of doing this tonight just to give a quick overview, playing one of the shorter scenarios from the series to try and help people out who might be wanting to learn. So, Patrick Pence, do you want to say hi to everybody? My noble opponent.
I don't know how noble I am, but I'm a deep pig. Hi, Patrick Pence, wargamer-ish, light, I guess. I don't know. No Rob since he first bested me in the 2008 Great Campaigns semifinals.
Oh man, you remember the exact year and the game.
Oh yeah, well, it was the race to Spotsylvania.
And the scenario even. Oh man.
Well, I made a critical opening error, and you jumped on it, and
I see.
It was all downhill from there.
The bitterness still burns deep inside you.
Avenge me!
And the vengeance will happen here tonight in the Battles of the American Revolution demo. So
yeah, I've played this a little bit, but this is a refresher for me, so I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, that's good. And then, if he is still online, Mark, do you want to say hello, since you are the one who designed this whole series and game system for us? We might have lost his audio again. Sorry, Mark, if you are still on there. We can't hear you. I know he has had some issues with his microphone, so he may be just listening tonight, but hopefully he can come in here again if he gets it worked out. So anyway, what we're doing here tonight is playing the historical Freeman's Farm scenario from Saratoga. And I think what I kind of want to do is give just a quick overview of how this system works in case you're not familiar with it. I'm not going to go through and explain all the rules and talk it through, but I'll give a quick overview of it, and then I always kind of prefer it if we just kind of jump in and start playing. And I know the system well. Patrick has played it before, but not for quite a while, so I'll probably be talking him through a little bit, and we'll just talk through what we're doing and try to explain as much as we can. So if anybody has questions along the way, feel free to just jump right on in here. I don't think we have so many people in here that we need to worry about everybody talking at once. So if you want to mute your microphone just to make sure you don't have background noise going, that's all good and well. But I think we're going to do okay with who we have here. So so this is Saratoga. This historical scenario was one of the ones that was added when they reprinted this just a few years back. It wasn't in the original game, but it is now. It's a very good learning scenario because there's not many pieces involved here. And we've got, obviously, the Americans and the British taking just a part of the overall Battle of Saratoga. And it's a 4-turn scenario, so it's pretty short in terms of the way scenarios in this system work. And it's going to give us a chance to just go through the mechanics and get a few battles in there. You can get a feel for kind of the ebb and flow of it and how everything works together. So, this is a very, if you're if you're not that familiar with it yet, you can probably already see this is a pretty classic hex and counter system that uses a combat results table with modifiers that make your attacks better or worse depending on how you put them together. And each of the scenarios has victory conditions. There are usually 3 different ways to win a scenario. So to kind of, before we get into the mechanics, I'll kind of just start out by saying, what are you trying to do? So the way that you win, there are 3 ways to do that. There's a decisive victory condition, a substantial victory condition, and a what is it, moderate tactical? I'm already blanking on the terms. The lowest level one, whatever it is. Marginal, thank you, Mark. Marginal victory is the lowest one. The decisive victory conditions are usually very difficult to achieve. They're typically only come into play in case somebody's made a big mistake, or playing a new player who maybe doesn't quite understand how all the rules work together. You don't see those happen too often, but it can occur, and actually in this scenario that we're going to play, it certainly has a better chance to happen than it might otherwise. A substantial victory is when you cause one side or the other to basically break and run from the battlefield. And the way that you do that is if you go up to the top of the screen and you look at this Army morale track that's up in the upper left-hand corner. I will explain in a minute how that all works, but basically that is tracking the overall morale of your side. And the more you win or lose battles as the scenario goes on, it's going to make that Army morale marker either go up or down the track, depending on if you're winning or losing. And if it goes all the way to 0, no matter where you are in the game, no matter what turn it is, that's basically instant death, or instant surrender as it is, and the other side wins. That certainly has a good chance of happening. That is, we see that happen a good number of times in games in this series. And yes, thanks. Yeah, Mark. In this particular scenario, I'll get to the kind of specific scenario conditions here. In this scenario, that will happen if you go down, not all the way down to 0, but actually down to the wavering part of that track, where you see it gets down to 4 on that track. Finally, yeah, you have the marginal victory conditions, and these are the ones that, statistically, that most games are going to end that way, which is basically a game won on points, and you score victory points by doing certain things. If you open up in Vassal, there's a VP window up there in the top. If you open that up, that shows you all the different ways that you score points in this scenario. Many of those points come through combat by either eliminating or capturing, or causing a step loss to another unit. All of the leaders, you'll see, have their point values there in case you happen to capture or eliminate them in combat. You get points for that. And then in this particular scenario, you see there's 3 hexes on the map that this scenario is basically geared around, that we're fighting over. So these are the hexes that you are going to try to control as we fight along here. The one that's in blue is started out controlled by the Americans. The one that's in red, as you can guess, started out controlled by the British. And that one in black, that's in the middle of the map, right by, or it is Freeman's farm, is uncontrolled. So in this particular scenario, what we're trying to do here is control these 3 hexes. If either side controls the ones that are currently blue and red, so if the British capture the blue one and turn that red, or if the Americans capture the red one and turn that blue, and they keep control of the other one that they start out controlling, then that's a decisive victory, and you've won. If that doesn't happen, then this one that's currently black and uncontrolled in the middle will come into play, because that's worth 1 victory point at the end of the scenario if you control that. That won't matter if somebody wins a decisive or substantial before that happens, but if we do get to the end of the game and nobody has won a decisive or substantial, then we'll go to points, and then this 1 victory point for Freeman's farm will come into play. So that's kind of the focus of where this scenario is headed to start out with. So I'm not going to go into all the details, but I'll go over just kind of the sequence of play so that you know the order things are going to happen here. You start out by rolling for initiative, and in this game, in this system, the thing that drives so much of the strategy and so much of your decision making is that you're never exactly sure who's going to go next. At the start of most turns, now on this turn 1 for this scenario, the initiative is fixed. The Americans are going to go first. But on the next 2 turns after that, we're going to roll a die to see who goes first, and whoever wins, that side has to go first. In other games, that have an initiative mechanic, sometimes it's the winner decides who gets to go first. That's not the case in Battles of the American Revolution. It's just if you win the die roll, you are going first. You don't have a choice about it. And if you play enough, you will realize that there are, in fact, sometimes when you want to lose the initiative because you don't want to go first, and that is kind of more advanced strategy. But we'll kind of see how that works as we go along here. So we'll roll on the other turns after this. We'll roll the dice to see who goes first. Whoever wins the initiative, they're going to end up going first in that turn. Both players do get a turn, or get a chance to move and do combats in each turn. It's just the order that happens that may change. So the first order of business when it's your turn is to do movement. So you move all of your pieces, and if you take a look at the game pieces to kind of show you what the numbers are that you're looking at there, I'm going to move this piece, the 2nd New Hampshire Regiment that you see moving there. So the first number, the combat value, is 3, the one in the lower left-hand corner, so that's how much combat strength he has in close combat. The second number there, the 4, is his movement, so that's his movement allowance. And then the +1 number is going to be the number that you use. It's his own unit morale. So we already talked about army morale. That's that track up at the upper left corner. Each unit also has unit morale that you use to conduct rally morale checks and then try to rally them back if they fail those morale checks at the end of the turn. So you'll do all of your movement. Once you've done all your movement, any units that have previously been in combat and may have been disrupted or shattered get to do a rally phase, a rally check, and that's where you'll use that unit morale to see if they pass that or not. After the rally phase comes defensive artillery. So you'll see, if you look down here, I'm going to move some of the British units, that artillery unit that's using, there's a piece of artillery. Artillery units only fire defensively, so when it's your turn, you actually don't get to use them. You only use them when it's the other player's turn. And they have their own phase where they get to conduct their artillery fire and see if they can possibly disrupt some of those combats that the other player's setting up before they happen. After artillery comes rifle fire. We do have a couple rifle units that are in this scenario, and those are the ones with the black and white R on them. I'm moving Morgan up here, he's one of them, and then down here the Jaegers, the German Jaegers, the Hessians, are also a rifle unit. So rifle units, much like artillery, get their own phase. They get their own separate chance to attack before all of the normal combats take place. Once you've done those two things, then it's time to resolve close combat. And close combat is what you call just the normal combat phase, where you now resolve all of the combats that you've set up. The rule to go by with close combats is that every unit who's adjacent to another unit must attack. So if you move adjacent up to a hex adjacent to the enemy, you know you are going to be having to arrange combats there. So you don't want to move adjacent to the enemy unless you know that you do in fact want to attack. After close combat, you apply your combat results, which we'll go through as they occur, I think, in this scenario. And then you pass it over to the other player, and they take their turn. And that's basically the turn sequence. As again, there's a few special things that can happen in some of the scenarios that add and subtract to those phases, but that's the general outline that we're going to be following every turn. So, yeah, I'll get to that, Mark, about diversions and all, I think, when we start doing combats, but I just wanted to give people a general idea of the how it all kind of flows there. So, Patrick, do you have a preference for sides? Have you looked at this? Do you really care which side you want to play?
I had only played prior to the Freeman Farms scenario being created, so I don't have a preference.
Okay.
If you want to just take whatever you think is better for me, then give it to me. That's great.
Sure. Okay. Well, if you're the Americans, you get to move first and maybe attack first. So you want to jump right in and have some fun attacking?
No.
Oh no. Okay. You want to see me do it first? Okay.
I'll be the loyal Tory
Okay.
British on this.
Fair enough. All right, so I'm going to go in here. In Vassal here, we do actually have to join a side because when we get to combats and we do tactics chits, those are chits markers we're going to drag out onto the board, and they need to be hidden to the other side until we reveal them. So you do need to make sure to join your side. So I've just joined as the Americans.
And I've joined as the British.
Okay. All right, so with this particular scenario, a few important things to keep in mind. Every scenario in the system, usually has some of its own special scenario rules that may alter the standard rules, just a little bit. But a few things to keep in mind here as we go. We've got a lot of British units here, especially on the board, but they can't all move right away. So if you look down here, this bottom grouping that's in this inverted pyramid down at the bottom of the map. So the Jaegers, the Earl of Balcarres, and the British Grenadiers, those three that are kind of closest to the American lines. Those three can't move until my reinforcements have come onto the game. So your first movement phase after my reinforcements have entered, those three units are now free to move. And if you look up on the turn track, which is in the upper right corner, you're going to see those reinforcements. They're sitting there on the turn track. They will come into play on those turns. So I'll get a couple units next turn, and then on turn 10, or the second turn that we're playing here, we're going to get a whole bunch coming on. So those three are under those restrictions. And then the three hexes behind them, so the stack that has the Walker artillery unit, and then the Fraser leader counter, and then Fraser's Rangers. Those three, any of the units in those three hexes can actually not move unless and until an American unit moves adjacent to them. And as soon as that happens, they are released. If that does happen, they get released, and then there's actually a die roll to see if some more units are released after that. We can see if that happens when we get to that point. But just to know that all of those units down there below that hex that's outlined in red, those are not moving right away. It's just the units above that that are in play to start out with.
Okay.
So yeah, when you saw our reinforcements as that's coming in, this is a short scenario, just 4 turns. One thing for you, Patrick, because you are the British player, you have a momentum chit to spend. If you look, that's right under the turn track, or the army morale track up in the upper left-hand corner. So momentum can be used in just a couple ways, and these are things you want to keep in mind when we get to combat. You can use that, first of all, to affect the initiative roll. So when it's time for us to roll initiative for the turn, you can spend a momentum chit, and that will add 2 to your initiative roll. So if you really want to win the initiative and go first, you can consider spending that. And then the other use is in combat. If you we're in a close combat, this is not for artillery and rifle fire. It is just for close combat. But if we get into a close combat and one of us rolls or gets a result that you don't like, it can be either my roll or it can be your roll. You can spend that momentum chit to force a re-roll of the die and get a new combat result. Once you've done that, now you have to accept the result after that. So it may be better or it may be worse. And you probably don't want to do that unless you think there's a good chance of getting a better result for you. But that is something for the British that you should keep in mind here, because you do have that to use right off from the beginning. Alright, so I think we're just going to go ahead and jump into it here. So I, as the American, am moving first here. Like we said, the order is fixed for turn 1. It won't be for turn 2 and turn 3. And then if we're still going at turn 4, it will be fixed again, and the American player is going to move first. I will move first on turn 4. Oh yeah, and so the we've got a couple counters here that we do have to finish our setup with. So Patrick, for you, the Jaegers, the German Jaegers, those need to be stacked with either the Earl of Balcarres or the Grenadiers, so you can stack them with whoever you want here as part of the setup.
That my network connection dropped.
Oh, it did? Okay. Well,
Yeah,
we got
so
you back.
I missed everything.
What did you...
Momentum forward.
Oh,
but,
no, okay. Well...
That's okay.
So I was just saying here, there are a couple things that we need to finish with the setup. For you, your German Jaegers that are down there at the bottom of the screen, those actually start set up either with the Earl Balcarres unit or the Grenadiers unit right behind them. So whichever you choose, you can go ahead and start him out.
Okay, I will put him with the Earl.
And then, yeah, for me, Arnold is with either the 2nd or 3rd New Hampshire. I'm going to put him right up there on the 2nd New Hampshire to start out. Okay, so it's me first, moving as the Americans, so we're into the movement phase here. And, Burgoyne as well. Yeah, let's see. So you see Burgoyne up there in the middle? He's got to be stacked with somebody as well.
There we go. Keep it simple.
Alright, all good. Let's see. Make sure we didn't miss anything else in the setup. I think that's everything. You do have a couple units that start out reduced on their flip sides, but that's been done already, so you don't need to worry about that. Okay. If you look up in the charts window, you'll see there's, as I'm getting into movement here, we're going to end up dealing with terrain and movement allowances and such. You can look at if you open up the charts window and look at the tab that says terrain effects, you'll see all of the movement allowances that are going to affect movement here. I'm going to start out and I'll kind of talk through and show what's going on. But for me, the Americans, they actually have a few movement restrictions. I can't go further east than Mill Creek, which is the stream kind of in the middle of the map here. And then one of the hexes further up to 1217. Once I get there, I also can't go further east, even though that's beyond Mill Creek. So it just basically means all the fighting's going to happen kind of around Freeman's farm and then going south of there, or west of there, actually, as it is. North is to the left of us, not the top of the map. So let me start off by moving up here. So I'm going to start out with Morgan, who's on the very end. So Morgan's a light unit, which you can tell by that LT symbol on his counter. And as a light unit, he's got a few benefits, and one of them is that he moves through wooded terrain easier than most normal units. So you see these woods hexes that are right in front of him. And I move into here. That's only costing me 1 movement point to do that. For normal infantry units that are not light units, that would be 1.5. So Morgan can get through there a little bit easier. So he's going to go there for 1, 2, and then 3 to get right up next to your stack of Jones and the 62nd Regiment. And I'm going to keep on going down my line here. So Arnold and the 2nd New Hampshire, when leaders are going, you can move them together with... They can move separately, but it's kind of okay for our purposes too if you move them together, which I usually do in case there's a question of where he might move. So I'm going to move this stack up here for 1, 2, 3. And the nice thing for me is he moves into Freeman's farm, so he now takes control of that hex. So if I can keep that, that's 1 victory point for me, but I do have to keep it, which is anything but certain. And then I think I'm going to go ahead and skip down here to the 1st New Hampshire. They will go 1, 2, 3. And the 3rd New Hampshire will go 1, 2, 3. And then finally Dearborn back here, who is also a light unit, so he can breeze through these woods pretty easily too. He'll go 1, 2 for those woods, and then 3. So we'll come right on up, right from the beginning. Why not? And then I've got one more unit back here, this Cook's Connecticut Militia. The ones that have the graphic of him kneeling like that, and of course it's in the name too, are militia. They have a negative die roll modifier in combat, so you want to be careful about using them in combat. For me, I think I'm going to use him just to garrison this victory hex, the one that I want to hold on to back here. I'm not going to push him up too far yet, so he'll just sit up there. That cost him 2 movement points to get up there, because that's a hilltop, which you can see by those dashed lines around the hex. So, that looks like it's all from me for movement. So at this point we move on to the rally phase. We have not had any combat yet. I don't have any units that are disrupted or shattered, so we don't have to worry about that. I don't have any units that need to make morale checks. So we can skip right on past that to defensive artillery. So, Patrick, this is where you get to have some fun now. So,
Hey.
You've got a couple artillery units that are both up there close to my guys. If you start off looking at the green one, the Hessians, the Spangenberg, the one that's the German unit. If you look at where he is, he's within range. Artillery shoots out to a range of 3 hexes maximum in this scenario, in this series. The problem for you is that he doesn't have line of sight to my units, because you can see between him and that hex with the 3rd New Hampshire, there are 2 woods hexes. So he's not going to have a shot because line of sight is blocked. The things that block line of sight in this series are the terrain, like woods and hills. In this case, the line of sight, when you trace it from the center hex to the center hex, it goes right down the middle of the hex side there. In this series, it's the kind of the rule you see a lot, where in that case, if the terrain on both sides of that hex side is blocked, then it's considered blocked, and that is the case here. So Spangenberg does not have a shot. Now your Jones artillery unit is a special case here, where normally he would be able to shoot because he's got units that are right next to him, and he's adjacent, so he would have a pretty decent chance to hit somebody. However, in Saratoga, and this is one of these specific rules for this game in the series, he also has Morgan, this rifle unit that's right next to him. And Morgan is a special case because he is a rifle unit, and he has the special ability where whenever he is adjacent to a British or a Hessian artillery unit, he prevents that unit from firing. So because Morgan is adjacent to you, Jones actually doesn't have a shot either. So unfortunately, you don't get to take any artillery just yet. It's a long way of explaining you don't quite get to do anything yet, but
Thank you, Rob.
but you will eventually. We'll get there. So next, after artillery, is rifle phase. So we will have something here. Now your rifle unit, as we said down there, the Jaegers, they're not able to do anything just yet, and then they're not adjacent to anybody anyway, so he will not have a shot. But Morgan will. I've got my unit up here that is a rifle unit, and he is adjacent to you, and he does have a chance to shoot at you. Oh yeah, Mark is saying, yeah, it's the rule is it's when Morgan has a zone of control. It's not just being adjacent, it actually has to be a zone of control. And the difference there would be zones of control do not extend into the woods. So for example, right now Morgan has a zone of control into Jones's hex. He doesn't have a zone of control into 1216 and 1215, which are those 2 woods hexes to the east of him, going up on the map. So it's zone of control, not adjacency. So, so for rifle fire, Morgan is going to go ahead and take a shot as a rifle unit, and he's got 2 units he can choose from, Jones and the 62nd. Rifle units only have a range of 1 hex, so it does have to be somebody that you're adjacent to. I'm going to go ahead and pick Jones, that artillery unit, to shoot at. So what we do is you go to your charts, and we're going to go ahead and look at the ranged fire 2-hit table. As rifle fire and artillery fire both use this 2-hit table to first determine whether you get a hit, and then if you do, we'll make one more roll to see what the damage is. So Morgan, if you're looking back at the numbers again, he has a 2 there for his strength, so he's a 2 strength unit that's firing adjacent. Normally, rifle units, like if you look down at that Jaeger unit again, you'll see up in the upper right-hand corner there's a little red FF unit, or red FF lettering, which stands for first fire. And normally, when rifle units fire for the first time in the game, they get a +1 modifier to hit. Morgan is not marked that way because in this scenario, just for this scenario, he doesn't get his first fire bonus. He's already basically fired. In the historical battle, he had already fired at this point and used that first, when rifle units at this time fired, it was normally that first shot they fired that was most well aimed and most carefully taken. After that, it got much more shaky, so they don't get that bonus after on. So anyway, he doesn't get his bonus for that, for this shot. So what I'm looking at here on the 2-hit table, I'm looking on the left-hand column, it's 2 strength points firing. I'm firing adjacent, so that means I have a base number of 6 to hit. So I'm going to need to roll 6 or higher to hit. I am going to get a modifier to that because I'm firing at Jones. It's an artillery unit. And if you look down there in the modifiers, you see there's a +1 if the target is artillery or mounted dragoons. So since you are artillery, I'm going to get a +1. So basically, ends up meaning I need a 5 or better to hit. So I will go ahead and roll the die. and a big fat 0 for me. So they barely even bothered to take a shot there. So, no hit. Don't have to worry about anything else after that. So no damage
Powder
at all.
was not dry today.
Not at all. Nope. So, okay, nothing to go. That's my only rifle shot. So we now go on to close combat. So now I've got to go ahead and declare what all the combats are going to be. So as we already said, I know going into this that anybody who's adjacent to me, I have to attack them. There is one way to get out of that, which is called a diversion. This is marked as an optional rule in the series, but it's something that we always, the default is to use that, and we certainly use that in tournaments. So just know that that is going to be an option if you're playing this in the tournament. The way a diversion works is that when you look at all of your units and who they're adjacent to, right now I know that I need to attack Jones's hex and I need to attack Burgoyne's hex. If I want to, I can declare one of those hexes to be the target of a diversion. And what I would end up doing is saying that to make this work, actually I'm going to move Morgan back temporarily. I'll move him back up here for the combat. Let's just say that Morgan moved there. Right now, I would pretty much have to take somebody in Arnold's stack and attack Jones, and somebody, at least in the 3rd New Hampshire's hex, and attack Burgoyne. But let's say I didn't want to attack Jones's stack, and I just wanted to have all of Arnold's guys and all of the 3rd New Hampshire's stack, have everybody attack Burgoyne. I could go ahead and say that I'm going to do that, and declare the diversion against Jones. And that means that all of my units adjacent to Burgoyne attack him instead. But the penalty for doing that is that you take a column shift. So normally what we'll do here with combats is we're going to total up our combat strength. We'll figure out what the odds ratio is, and then you look at that column on the close combat chart, and that's the column you roll on to figure out what happens in the combat. But if you're doing a diversion, that's going to take one shift down. So if it was, say, a 3-2 attack, it's going to get shifted down to a 1-1 attack instead. So why would you want to do that? Sometimes you want to not have to attack a particularly strong hex in order to maybe gang up on a weaker hex. Maybe you want to do that because it's going to help you stay in a victory hex or take a victory hex. If you play a while, you'll see kind of what the situations are, why you might want to do that. But it is a very handy tactic to kind of keep in mind as one of the possibilities. So I'll move Morgan back up there. So I am not going to do a diversion for this time. We're just going to go ahead and do kind of standard combats. When you have multiple units in a hex, the way that Arnold does, those units don't have to attack the same hex. They can split up, and that's what I'm going to do here with this one. So I am going to declare, looking this over here, let's see, I think what I'll do is I'm going to say that, first of all, I'll start on the end here. Morgan and the 2nd New Hampshire, which is one of Arnold's guys, those 2 units are going to attack Jones's hex. And then I'm going to take the 1st New Hampshire and the 3rd New Hampshire and Dearborn down there in the end, and those 3 units are all going to attack Burgoyne's hex. So I have to declare that, to start out with. I don't get to do one and see what the results are and then decide on the other attacks. You do have to declare everything right off the bat. Once you've done that, now I can resolve these in any order I want. So let's just start off on the top with Morgan's attack. And we're going to start out first by totaling up our strength. So for me, Morgan is a 2, and then the 2nd New Hampshire is a 3, so I've got 5 altogether.
I presume Jones is not a factor, so I just have 4 for the 66.
So that's correct. Yeah, artillery does not factor into the combat strength when you're doing the close combats. That's that 1 that artillery has is only going to come into play during that defensive artillery when he's taking his shots, but you don't get to count him in close combat. Now, he is going to suffer, if you do get a negative result, he is going to have to take that combat result. So he's not immune from the combat, but he just doesn't get to factor into it. So 5-4, so starting, and you always round down in favor of the defenders, so it's a 1-1 starting out here. So now that we know the odds, we can go ahead and look and see what combat modifiers we have. So the first thing we have to do is declare lead units. And the lead unit is the one whose unit morale you're going to use as a modifier in the combat. And that unit morale, again, being that number with the plus +1 or the 0, as is the case for me. I am going to use let's go ahead and say the 2nd New Hampshire is my lead unit. So the 2nd New Hampshire has a +1, so I'm at +1 for my unit morale. So Patrick, of course, you don't have a choice. You have to use the 62nd since he's the only unit that can participate in this combat. So you're also a +1. So far we're even on our modifiers. For me, I've got 2 more that are going to come into play here. One of them is Arnold. So Arnold himself, as a leader, he has a leadership modifier that he's going to apply to this combat, which is that first 2. He's got a 2, 2, and 6. The 6, again, is his movement allowance. The 2 is a number that he's going to use to help rally people. But the 2 is his modifier in combat. So I'm going to get to add +2 to my roll because Arnold is in there. And then I've got one more modifier that unfortunately is going to hurt me, and that's Morgan. Because Morgan is a rifle unit, if you look on the modifiers, the rifle units have a negative modifier. It gets a -1 for being in combat if you take them. Rifle units at this time usually didn't have bayonets that they could use in combat when the fighting got to close quarters, so that's the reason for that modifier. But he is going to cost me -1. So my total modifiers are +1 for my lead unit morale, -1 for Morgan being a rifle, and +2 for Arnold. So I am a net of +2. And then Patrick, you are a net of +1 for your lead unit. And we don't have any other modifiers in play here.
Okay.
So there's just one die roll. The attacker is the only one who rolls the die, and then you use that to get the result. So taking my +2 and your +1, your modifier is subtracted from mine, so that ends up being a +1 is the modifier before we get to tactics. And yes, Roberto, now we do tactics. So the last part of it that we figure out is the tactics chits. So if you look at the tactical matrix on the charts, you'll see this is where you can get some more modifiers that might be better or worse for you. And a lot of this depends on how much risk you want to take in a particular attack. It takes a few go-throughs of this to kind of see how it works, but if you spend some time looking at that matrix, what you will see is that certain tactics give you the possibility for higher modifiers, +2 being the best you can do, but also the possibility of a much worse modifier as well, more chances to get modifiers that harm you. Or you can play it safe. Some of them you only get a maximum of +1, but also the limits that you might only have -1 or 0. The real important thing to look at is that some of the results you get from the tactical matrix end up in no combat. It doesn't happen too often in the games, but the threat of it happening is always something that you have to keep in mind. And, oh, there we go. I thought I'd frozen up for a second. When you cross-reference the results and you see that NC result, if that happens, that ends up meaning we're not going to have a combat at all. And the defender actually has to physically withdraw from the hex, and then the attacker can advance into it. But you don't roll the die, you don't get a combat result at all. So if you're trying to cause damage to the other side, you have to keep in mind that you don't want them to be able to do that if that's something you want to prevent. If you're willing to run the risk of a no combat, then you might think about doing that. But do make sure to look at those possible results there. So all we're doing here is picking a chit, and we're cross-referencing what we pick. So we'll reference the attacker's chit with the defender's chit, and then see what that gives us. So yeah, they're up here in the counters window. Patrick, if you haven't found them already, just look on the tabs under counters. You'll see the British tactics.
Oh, okay.
You can just draw one out onto the map, and it's going to be automatically masked to me, so I won't see what it is. And
and I presume in this case, since I don't have a leader, I am only limited to...
Yep. Yeah, that is the other thing to look at, is that some of them you will be limited in your choices. So you need, if you see those shades of green on the chart, you have the basic 4, skirmish, attack and echelon, stand fast, and withdraw, that are always in play. Then the next 2, frontal assault and commit reserve, mean that you either have to have a leader in your hex, or if you have a leader next to you. Now you do actually have Burgoyne in an adjacent hex. He's not in the 62nd Regiment's hex, but he's adjacent. So because Burgoyne is there, you actually are going to have at least those 6 chits available to you. And then on top of that, we actually are going to have the full 8 available to us as well, because those last 2 are available if you have an open flank. And an open flank you judge by looking at where the hex that's where the combat is, Jones's hex. If there is a hex adjacent to both Jones and at least one of my attacking units that's empty, such as 1117, then we have an open flank, and then we can pick those flanking tactics too. So right now, because we both have leaders either in our hex or adjacent, and we have an open flank, we've got all the tactics available to us.
Okay.
So I will pick that and just draw it. Usually just place it kind of right by your side of the line.
Okay.
Alright, and I will reveal. And you can do the same. Uh-oh. Alright, so I'm charging straight ahead, frontal assault. You picked turn flank. So if you cross-reference that on that matrix under the attacker and turn flank for the defender, you see -1 as the result. So, yes, well done. You outguessed me right here on the beginning. So the modifier was going to be +1 before this. That brings the modifier back down to 0. So after all is said and done, it's just going to be a straight-up die roll with no modifier. So we can delete those chits for the tactics. And I'm going to go ahead and roll, and I'm rolling on the 1-to-1 table at net 0. So here's the roll. So, alright, so got a pretty good rule to start out with here with 7. So if I look on the 1-to-1 column under 7, it says Defender Retreat. Okay. When you have, you see those results on the chart, when some of them have a number before and after the slash. The one before the slash is for the attacker, the number one after is for the defender. So I don't have a result for this one for 7, so nothing bad happens to me, but yeah, the defender has to retreat. So for you, Patrick, that means that the 62nd, your lead unit, must retreat. Okay. And the rules governing that are it's just 1 hex, and you must move. Each scenario is going to list, usually one side or the other has a direction that you have to retreat into. And for you, that's the British side of the board, which is the north side of the board.
Okay.
So you have to retreat in the north direction. It can be there, or it could also be 917. Yeah, down there. Both of those are considered to be going in that direction.
What would be the positives and benefits of doing one or the other?
So that's going to largely depend on, if you may be opening up a hole in your line if you go one way or the other. This system very much rewards kind of keeping your units fairly close together and usually in the semblance of a line where you have a continuous line of units. That may come into play. It may come into play if you're retreating towards a victory hex or not, if you want to protect a certain hex. The other thing that does happen that you have to be very aware of that's a restriction, you can't retreat into a zone of control. So, for example, where you were in the hex there, you could not retreat into 1117, adjacent to Morgan, because he has a zone of control into there. If you're ever in a situation where you're forced to, where you don't have a choice to retreat into a zone of control, you're going to be captured. And that's something you very much want to avoid. The other thing I don't think I mentioned yet is the stacking limits, is the fact that we have a 6 strength point stacking limit in hexes. That doesn't count the artillery. You always get to have 1 artillery unit with you for free. But for the infantry units, you can only have a maximum of 6 strength points in a hex. So the other situation you do sometimes see is if you're forced to retreat into a hex where you're going to be overstacked. If you can take a step loss, in other words, flipping that unit over to the other side, if that will bring you under the stacking limit, then you're good. You are going to suffer the negative results of taking a step loss, but at least you won't be captured. But if even doing that isn't going to allow you to stay under the stacking limits, then that unit can't retreat into that hex at all, and may be captured if he has no other place to go.
Okay.
So yeah, for you, either there or 1017 are your two choices.
Okay. I think I'll keep him right there.
Okay. So that is a given. Now for the other units in the hex, for you Jones, as we said, he didn't get to participate in the combat, but he is now going to have to roll to see if he retreats or not. And so the way that you do that is you're going to use his printed unit morale, which is that 0 on his hex. A 5 or better is passing a morale check here. So you want to roll a die, and if you roll 5 or higher, Jones is going to stay in that hex. And if you roll 4 or less, he is going to have to retreat. He doesn't have to retreat to the same place. He can retreat to a different hex if he wants to, but he will have to retreat.
Okay. So here is his retreat roll. He will stay.
Alright, he passed, so he has to stay. Now, a very important part of kind of strategy here as you're going along and learning more about the game. That's not such a bad result for you here because you know that you're going to move next. So you're going to be able to move Jones or move somebody up there with him before you have to be in combat again. The danger would be, let's say I was moving last in the turn and we were going to roll for initiative for the next turn. If I happen to get the next move and I move next, Jones is now doesn't have anybody with him. And the reason that's important is that artillery is automatically captured in combat if you get to the close combat phase and there's an enemy unit adjacent. He'll still get a chance to fire, or at least he normally would if Morgan were adjacent to him. He can't even do that in this case. But if artillery is ever alone in a hex, in a close combat phase, they are automatically captured. So there are some cases, again, where, let's say if we didn't know who was going next, you would probably want Jones to fail that, that morale check, because you want him to retreat and get out of there. But as is so often the case, units do not always do what you would wish them to do, and you don't have perfect control over all of the units that you can see. So that's one very important thing to keep in mind as we go. But anyway, you've passed your check, so he's staying. So that took us through close combat. So now we have one more to finish down here, the other one, which is Burgoyne, the attack on Burgoyne. So we'll do the same process here, and I have, let's see, total up my strength, I've got 3, 6, 7, 8 total going in on this combat.
I've got 4.
You've got 4, yep, so we have 2 to 1 to start out with, and I'm gonna, for the lead unit here, I'm gonna pick Dearborn down there on the bottom. He's at a +2. And you, of course, have to pick the only unit that's available, the 21st Fusiliers, which is a +1. So far I'm up 1 on you there for modifiers, so I'm at +1 right now. Now because the 1st New Hampshire is participating in this attack, you'll see Arnold up there is, again, he's also going to be able to apply his leadership modifier to this combat as well. That is a good thing to do if you are able to do this as a way to kind of use that leadership model or modifier in multiple combats. If you have units stacked with Arnold the way they are now and they're participating in different combats, then Arnold gets to throw his modifier in both cases. So that will help me here as well. So I'll get his +2. Now you have Burgoyne. You've got a leader in this combat as well now too. So you're going to get his +1. So that's another net of +1 in my favor. So I'm at +2 total. I'm up 1 on unit morale and I'm up 1 on the leader. And it looks like that's it. And now we'll do tactics again. So we'll do the same process we did before, and just like last time, we've both got leaders, and we do have an open flank. If you look down there at 0815, that's adjacent to both of us, and that is unoccupied, so we have an open flank. Doesn't matter that it's woods, that's okay. It's still considered an open flank for these tactics purposes. So we, again, can pick from all 8 tactics chits. So I am going to go ahead and make my selection. I'll put that one out there.
Reveal!
And what did we get? Attack on echelon to refuse flank. So cross-referencing that, attack an echelon for the attacker, refuse flank for the defender is +1. So I get +1 out of it. So that one goes to me. Alright, so it looked like a net of +3 on this die roll. I'm up 1 on unit morale, up 1 on leadership, and then another 1 from tactics. So I'm going to be rolling on the 2 to 1 column with a +3. So here is that roll. 5. So that will be fairly good for me. That's 5 with that +3 becomes an 8. So that result is, looking at the column, is a defender disrupt. So this is going to be a little bit worse for you than that retreat, like in the first combat. And now you have to disrupt. So you just clicked on that and you see a couple things happened here automatically. So up there at the army morale track, that just dropped your army morale by 1. You are going to get a chance to get that back, because when it is your turn, you're going to be able to have a chance to rally him, and we'll do that when that happens. But just so you know, this isn't a permanent change. You do have the chance to rally him eventually, but for right now, you're down 1 army morale. Now, you have to retreat as well, but unlike the normal retreat result, you've got to retreat 3 hexes. The same rules govern it in terms of the retreat direction, and not being retreating into my zones of control and not being overstacked, but you do have to go 3 hexes this time. And stacking limits are always in effect at all times, even during movement, so you can't temporarily overstack as long as you end movement outside of it. You have to respect those limits during all phases. And Burgoyne goes with him as well. You definitely don't want to leave him behind, because he'll be captured automatically too if I move in there. Now, leaders don't have to. I should say, you actually do have the option. They don't have to retreat with the units. You can leave them behind. You might want to do that, say, if there were other units in the hex that might suffer this result. If there were other units stacked with them, they would have to make that same morale check like Jones did, and either pass that or fail that, and that would determine whether they retreat. They, if they do, in this case, if they had other units were there and they had failed their check, they would just have to retreat 1 hex, like a normal retreat. It's only that lead unit that has to retreat the 3 hexes in a disrupt. Yeah, Chris is asking if he has to retreat 3. If he's gonna go with, if he's gonna retreat with the Fusiliers, then yeah, he would stick with him and do all 3. If he stays in the hex, which you definitely would not want to do in this case, but if he stayed, then he would just stay there. But if he goes with the lead unit in a disrupt, he does have to go 3. So, yep, you're good where you are there. Now, since you vacated the hex, the last part is that I get to advance in there. And the rules governing that, which again are very important because they end up affecting where my guys have to go, is that my lead unit must advance. I don't have a choice. I have to put Dearborn, the unit that I chose as my lead unit, into that hex. So he advances. Now for everybody else, they have a choice. I can, if I want to, I can move other units in there up to the stacking limit of 6 strength points. So I can, if I want, put other people in here. I think for right now, I am just going to leave it as is, and I'm not going to throw anybody else in there. It's just going to be Dearborn. So I will not take advantage of that. I'm just going to sit right where I am and call that good.
Okay.
So that is the end of close combat. So we did our 2. We applied all those results, and if you look at it, you probably saw, Patrick, for your unit that disrupted, it has that red border around it just to show that.
Right.
That's different. That's just in the Vassal module. There are disrupt markers up there under the counters window. If you want to use those are certainly there too, the ones that you get in the physical game. But just so everybody knows what they're looking at, that red border means that you're disrupted. So that's it. That's the end of my turn. So I'm going to go ahead and clear off those little red dots you saw pop up whenever a unit moves. Those are helpful just to know who's moved yet and who's haven't. I'm going to hit the moved button to clear those off to show that we are all moved. And then go up here to the turn track, and I will flip the game term marker over to your flag, the British flag, and move that down to the bottom of the space on the turn to let us know we're at the bottom half of this turn. And it is your move. So As you move here, keep in mind now, we don't know who's going to move next after this. We're going to be rolling for it next, so there is some uncertainty here. But
So
it is now over to you, and it is to your movement phase, so you get to do movement first.
and Burgoyne can move independently if he wishes, right?
He can, yeah. The thing you'll need to keep in mind is that unit of yours that's disrupted. He is limited to moving just one hex. And it's not a factor here, but if I were closer to you, you could not move adjacent to one of my units. You've got to stay at least one hex away. It's not possible anyway, but just know that he has a one hex limit on him. Burgoyne, if you choose to keep him with the 21st Fusiliers, he's going to help him with his rally check if you want to get that unit back into the fight. That's where that middle number, the 2 for Burgoyne, is a modifier that you'll add to that rally check.
And that
So
happens after movement?
that happens after movement. Yeah, you do have to do movement and set up all your attacks first before you find out whether that 21st Fusiliers has rallied or not. You don't get to see that
Right.
first. So yeah, I guess the question you're kind of be thinking of here is, do you want to use Burgoyne to possibly help in an attack, or do you want to keep him back there and help with that potential rally?
Okay. So many considerations already. Wow. Silverhorn did so
Yeah.
well. Okay.
Yeah, you do have some other leaders in play
Phillips
here
up
too.
here.
You've got Marcus point out. You've got don't forget about Phillips and the artillery unit that are up there. They may be off screen if you haven't scrolled up there, but just make sure
Yeah.
you look at them up there as well.
Well, let's like you said, let's protect some of the things that we know are going to be problematic. So we're going to move the 20th one, and then another one to join Jones.
So just as a quick, that was. Oh wait, sorry. Who were you just moving? Oh, the 20th there. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, I was looking at the 21st. Okay. Yep. All is good.
Okay. Phillips.
Another important point, although you're fine here, you're totally legal, with rifle units, when you move into their zone of control, which Morgan has in those 2 X's, that's an extra movement point. So just if you are looking at that, factor into that's going to be 2 movement points to get next to him instead of just the normal 1.
Oh, I believe I can get Phillips 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yep.
Okay.
If you weren't moving adjacent with Phillips the way you did there, this is all good, but if you weren't moving adjacent, those roads are actually important in this game as well too here. You would have the opportunity to use strategic movement, where those are basically only half a point each. Now, because you moved adjacent to me, you don't get to use strategic movement. So, but it's fine. You've got his full 6 movement points, and that got you there. So, you're good
Okay.
so far.
Good. And I think the challenge of, well, you said it earlier, the challenge of setting it up so that your units are attacking the hexes that you want, or multiple hexes, because everyone's got to participate and attack everything that's available.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's looking especially at considering, well, what happens if I win the combat and I have to advance in there? Do I want to advance, or do I really just want to cause damage to the enemy but stay where I am? And that can be a difficult thing to manage sometimes, is figuring out, projecting where you're going to end up if you do succeed, and likewise where you'll be forced to retreat if you don't. That is very much a part of the strategy of it. Yeah.
I am going to use the opportunity for Hosmer to get closer, but not into the zone of control.
Yep.
So it's going to go 1 or half, 1,
Yeah.
half, 2, get him there.
Exactly. Yep.
Actually, I can get him closer to there. This with Fangenberg in the 24th, and the Fighting 9th will go there, and there. They can't go there because... So artillery does not count?
No, yeah, they are good. You're right. Yeah, you've got 6 strength points of infantry in there. The artillery does not count against stacking, so you are fine there. Yep.
Okay. So, and this unit can only go one, you said, right? So
Yeah,
move
the
them
one
out,
is disrupted. Hmm.
get them prepared, and these units down here are still unavailable to
Yeah,
me.
exactly.
Okay.
They will,
Um,
at least some of them will have the opportunity to move next turn, but not this turn.
okay.
So yeah, that looks like everybody for you.
Right.
All right, so we move on to defensive artillery. I do not have artillery in this, so
Okay.
you don't have to worry about that.
Right.
No incoming artillery for you. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we skipped past the rally phase, and this is a good time to pull out these counters, which are now part of the series that you get. And the red border is supposed to help with this anyway, but we could put this rally on me marker. These didn't come in the original game, but they do with the reprint, the tri-pack that probably a lot of people have now. It's a helpful reminder to not do what we just did, which is skip past the rally phase.
Right.
Serve as a nice visual reminder. So yeah, before we do anything else, let's see if you can rally that unit. So you need 5 or higher.
A 5 or higher, and I'm getting a +2 because of his because of Burgoyne, right?
And a +1 for his printed unit morale.
Ah, okay. So,
If you do have to check the army morale check real quickly up there, because if your army morale sinks enough, you see when you get down here into the middle section in the fatigued part of that track, you'll see above it where it says unit morale -1. If you start doing that badly, that's saying all of those printed unit morales are down by 1. So fortunately, you're not there yet. So yeah, you're just going by what's printed on the marker on his unit. So
good.
you have a total of +3 to your roll. You need a 5 or higher.
Here we go.
And there you go. Easy. You got it. All right. So you get to rally him.
Okay. We say rally.
Yep. And you see it.
And it puts it back up. Okay.
Yep.
Good.
And you can delete that rally on me marker. Yep. There you go. All right. So he's good again. So
All right.
well done on the rally. Now we do defensive artillery, of which there is none. And then next up is rifle fire. So unlike artillery, rifles do happen on both phases. So even though I'm the non-phasing player here, I do get to take a rifle shot with Morgan again,
Okay.
which I will do. And you, don't have any rifles that are yet able to get up there. So it's just me for Morgan. And let's see. I think I will. Yeah, I'll go again and shoot at Jones just like I did last time. So it will be the same shot as last time. I'm still a 2-strength unit. I'm still shooting adjacent. So I have a base of 6 to hit, and I'm still getting a +1 because I'm shooting at an artillery unit. So I end up needing a 5 to hit. So here's that roll. Nope. Better than a 0 like I got last time, but not there yet. So still missing. So nothing for rifle fire. And now we go to close combat. So now you get to declare what combats you want to do.
Okay. So, in this situation where I don't necessarily have enough units to cover all of the defenders that I'm adjacent to, how does that work?
So yeah, you can attack multiple, and in fact you have to attack multiple hexes if that's where the defenders are. So
Okay.
right now, for example, Morgan as a rifle unit, another one of those abilities of rifle units, which I didn't say on my turn, I should say too. Rifle units are never forced to attack. I did choose to use him in the attack just to throw his strength in there, but they're not forced to attack. They are, however, forced to defend. So on your turn here, as you're attacking, you are going to have to attack Morgan, and I am going to have to take the result of whatever it is. So right now you know that the 20th Regiment under Jones, he's going to have to attack Morgan. You do, as Mark says, this is where you may want to think about using a diversion, where you may choose not to attack Morgan's hex and gang up on the other ones instead. But you have that diversion, and this is probably an opportunity where you might want to use it. But you do have a lot of options here. You know that the 3rd New Hampshire and Dearborn and Arnold and Morgan, they all have enemies adjacent to them, so they are all going to either need to be attacked or be the target of a diversion. And you have multiple ways you can work that out. So I'll talk you through some of the options if you want to, or if you want to just look at it and figure something out on your own.
In
Whichever
the
you want.
situation with the 20th, you could not do a diversion for Arnold in the first and second and only attack Morgan, right? You have to do it.
Well, no, you could work it that way, because what you could do is say that the 20th is diverting against Arnold and attacking just Morgan instead. That would be starting out as a 2-to-1 combat and be shifted down to 3-to-2. That takes care of Arnold, Stack, and Morgan. And then you could have, say, Phillips in the 62nd attack Dearborn, and then the 24th and the Fighting Ninth attack the 3rd New Hampshire, and then you'd have everybody covered. So that's one way you could do it. And that wouldn't be a bad idea, because then you don't have to attack Arnold, which is probably the the most fearsome stack in there with the modifiers. So yeah, that wouldn't be a bad idea to do it that way. But there are other combinations, so if you want to take a minute to look at it, or if you just want to do that, either way.
It would be nice to. I mean, I was trying to set up ganging up on Dearborn.
Okay. Yeah.
So that I would get Phillips perhaps and the 62nd and either the 9th or the 24th against Dearborn.
Yeah, you could, if you want to really get the good attack on Dearborn, with that Fighting Ninth stack, those two units have two options of either attacking 3rd New Hampshire or Dearborn. So yeah, if you want to get the better attack on Dearborn, looks like, you with the 62nd combined with the Fighting Ninth, that would get you up to a 2-to-1 attack. And then you could have the 24th just go by himself against 3rd New Hampshire as a 1-to-1.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so just to state then all what's happening, since you have to do this, you are... Go ahead, yeah, if you want to go through it.
I didn't realize there'd be a quiz, but no.
This is getting up there in complexity right from the beginning. So maybe it's good just to see all the different things that can happen. But yeah, go ahead.
The 20th will perform a diversionary attack against Morgan rather than Arnold, and Phillips in the 62nd, along with the Fighting Ninth, will go after Dearborn, and then the 24th alone will go after the 3rd.
Okay.
All right.
All sounds good. All right, so it's your choice. Which one do you want to do first?
Let's do the Morgan one first.
Okay. All right. So this one is fairly straightforward, since there's only one unit involved on both sides. So do you want to go ahead and do you want me to talk through what it is, or do you want to give it a shot and talk through it?
For everyone, just talk through. I'll get on turn 2 then.
Okay. So you have the 20th against the Morgan, so that's 4-to-2, 2-to-1. But it's a diversion involved, so that shifts it down to 3-to-2. So those are the odds we're using. Since there's no choice about leading units here, you're a +1 and I'm a +1, so we are even on unit morale. I'm just showing hiding the units a second. So if you look at the terrain underneath Morgan, you see it's cornfield underneath him. That is, just for historical purposes, there's no modifier involved for that. There are modifiers for other types of terrain. We're not fighting in any of that here, so that probably won't come into play, but there's no terrain modifier involved here. There will be the rifle penalty again, though, so you will get a +1 to your roll because I'm a rifle unit.
Okay.
So it looks like with everything else...
Phillips adjacent help?
It will help for tactics chits, but not for his modifier. So you don't get to use his +1, and likewise I don't get to use Arnold's +2, even though he's adjacent. They have to be actually in the hex with some of the units that are participating. When you have multiple hexes, like say if you had 2 hexes attacking versus my 1, just having one leader in one of them is enough to get his modifier, as long as he can command all of the units.
Right.
And that does come into play sometimes because there are some leaders that are not allowed to command all of the units on the board. They may be militia leaders, or in this one, some of the German leaders that can only command German units. That isn't a factor in this scenario, though. I think, looking back on it, Mark can correct me if I'm wrong, I think in this one, all the leaders can command everybody, so we don't have to worry about that here. But, yeah, it looks like we are at a 3-2 with a net +1 before tactics, and then we'll go ahead and choose our tactics. And again, yeah, we both have leadership because we have leaders adjacent, and we have an open flank in 11-17, so we've got the full set available to us. Let me see. Alright, got mine out there.
I think I will do. I'll do this one.
Alright, here's mine. Nope, guessed wrong. It's not too bad though. So yeah, attacker frontal assault to defender refuse flank is a 0, so no extra modifier from that.
Okay.
So you have a 3-2 attack at +1.
3-2 attack +1. Here is my die roll. It's a 5.
What does that give us? That is a double retreat, where we both have to retreat.
Interesting. Okay.
So keep in mind that momentum chip you do have up there. If you wanted to, you could spend that right here to re-roll again, and then you would have to accept the result of what comes next. And that's completely up to you if you want to do that. I would say in this situation, you probably don't want to spend it yet, because this is not such a critical attack, and while a retreat is not great for you, it's certainly not the end of the world either. It doesn't affect your army morale, it doesn't cause a step loss. Now, there is the possibility that I might get to move next, which means that Jones artillery unit, that scenario we were talking about before, where artillery is adjacent to enemy units, that may happen here. So that actually is, I guess that's one reason why you might want to spend the chit, but that's a judgment call you can make.
I think I'll hold it, and we'll do this. My unit, Jones will retreat there.
So you can, defender does retreat first, so you should wait. Probably not going to affect your retreat, but just going by the letter of the law, the defender does have to do his first. So
gotcha.
I will retreat 1 hex back towards my side of the board where I'm required to go. So that's what we'll do with Morgan. And now, yeah, you can go ahead and retreat yours.
Goes there.
But not Jones. This is the key here.
Oh, right. That's right. Of course. Okay. Ooh, that is ugly. But yes, I see your point. Okay. So 20th will drop back, and we'll hope that we get the initiative next.
Right. Yeah. So that's that bad scenario where you're leaving artillery unstacked with anybody.
It's way too early for me to give up on momentum.
Yeah.
And a morale check, he says.
No, Mark, he was attacking, remember? So I just retreat and his lead retreats. Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's right, Jones. Yeah, no, you still do a morale check for Jones as well. Yeah, so since you had a retreat result, Jones does have to make his morale check. So, yeah, I apologize. You do make a roll for him and then see if he passes it.
Excuse me, can I interject?
Yeah, absolutely, go ahead.
It says in parentheses here, but not the attacker's artillery.
No, I'm sorry, I'm getting confused around here, but
the other friendly units.
Yeah, because Mark came in here saying morale check, and then saying no. This is since you're the attacker. Sorry, Patrick. I know, I'm getting all confused here, but yeah, Patrick is the attacker. When you get this retreat result, it's just your lead unit, not the other units that he's stacked with. So yeah, sorry, we were right in the beginning. You just retreat with the 20th, and then Jones stays where he is. He does not roll for it. Okay. Thank you, Roberto.
If he had another unit there with him, and they got the retreat result, the lead unit retreats.
Yep.
The other unit would roll for morale to see if he stays, and the attacker's artillery doesn't do anything.
Yeah, that's right. That's the The downside of attacking when you have artillery in your hex is that if it goes badly for you and you have to retreat or disrupt even, that attacking artillery doesn't get to go with you. It does not take part in that result, so it stays where it is.
Cool.
So
that
yeah.
happens to me a lot.
Yeah, no. Believe me, that is a mistake that we all make when we are learning this series. And the bad things that can happen to artillery in this game. They're great when they get a hit and they score points for you, but you do have to manage them and where they are. And it is often, you'll see the good players, very often it's a good idea to always have at least 2 units stacked with artillery, so that if you do happen to get one of these bad results, you at least have a chance for another unit to stay there in the hex and accompany that artillery, so it's not alone. There are always exceptions. There may be scenarios or situations where you don't have a choice and you've got to keep one, but it's not a bad idea, if you can manage it, to always have at least 2 units stacked with artillery, so that you have less of a risk of that artillery ending up alone. So, alright, so I retreated, you retreated, and that looks like that does it for Morgan's attack. Alright, so which one's next?
Let's do the 24th against the 3rd New Hampshire.
Okay. So this is another just 1 unit versus 1 unit situation.
4 to 3. Now, that's just 1 to 1, right?
It is. Yep, always round down in favor of the defender.
And he's not light, so there's nothing there. I'm a +1, you're a +1, so it's a net +0.
Right.
And that's all I see, right?
Yeah, that is it. We've got no leaders and no terrain that come into play. The most.
Yeah, you have Arnold next to the New Hampshire.
I do, but again, remember with that combat modifier, you only get that if that leader is in the hex with the unit.
Right,
so
but you get the chits, but you'll get the chits. He will not.
Correct. That's right. Arnold will help me for the tactics chits. He won't help me for his leadership modifier, his combat modifier.
Okay.
So yeah, we are 1-to-1 even before tactics. So looking at the leadership situation now for tactics, I do have a leader adjacent, but you do not. So that looks like, and we do have an open flank in 8-14 would be considered open for us. So the good thing for me is that means I have the full 8 tactics available to me, but you're only going to have the basic 4, since you don't have a leader involved there.
And Patrick, that's the light color.
Yeah, on the upper left.
Yep. So let's see if I can.
I don't want to bother too much.
No. It's all good. No, chime in by all means if you have questions or even suggestions. Talk strategy, and we can kind of talk some of the tactical decision making. It's all good.
Okay, here we go.
All right.
I decided to stand fast.
Aha. Okay.
I got to turn to my flank.
So the thing that I know you have to be careful of, you are the attacker here. It's easy to mix up the cross-referencing on this matrix sometime. At least I know I've done that. But so we have to make sure we're cross-referencing. It's the attacker that picked stand fast, and the defender that picked turn flank.
Yes.
So yeah, you get that, and you see it's a -2.
Right.
Yeah, Mark is pointing out Morgan up there is a demi-leader. That star that's on Morgan's counter. For him, that means if he did not have a leader adjacent or in his hex, he counts as a leader for himself just for the purposes of tactics play. None of the other things like modifiers would come into play, but for those purposes, he is considered a leader. So I think you have a 1-to-1 attack -2. Does that sound right?
It does.
All right.
Okay. Here is
Delete
my
that.
roll. Let's see. 1-to-1 -2. And it's a 0.
Uh-oh.
Well,
That's not going to be so good.
Okay, so I'm going to take a step loss.
Yeah, the result is a 1-step loss. So your lead unit takes that step loss, and for you, that's the only unit involved here. So
I lose And you gain from that. Nicely done.
Yeah, that puts your morale down 1 and my morale up 1. And now, the other units that are in the hex with you do have to take morale checks. And so the interesting thing here is this may affect that attack that you have on Dearborn coming up here,
Sure.
in case your other unit has to retreat now. So, for your other units, for Spangenberg and
Fighting ninth.
or yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, we're doing this again. Yeah, it's for you, as I keep forgetting, you're the attacker here, not the defender. So, yeah, no, it's only the units that participate in the combat.
Oh,
So yeah, you're not gonna have to roll for the other guys. Sorry, no. We can't.
So
I'll learn eventually after 10 years or so.
So I get a 0 because his reduction affected his unit morale.
It
So I'm
did.
still-
Yeah, if you
still
look at that.
trying to get a 5 or better with no modifier.
Sorry, say that again.
I'm trying to get a 5 or better with no modifier.
Oh no, sorry. So for the lead unit, he took that step loss, and that's all that happens to him. So if you had, say, those other units, the 24th, let's say it had been participating in this attack, it would then have to make that morale check to see if it retreats. In your case, you only have one unit participating, the Fighting Ninth, so it's the one that takes the step loss, and it stays where it is. It doesn't retreat at all. It just absorbs that loss. So in this combat, that's all that's going to happen. He flips over to his step loss side, and that's it.
Okay. Well, then the last fight here is now the 60-second, right? 80-second.
24th and the 62nd, yeah, that you've got in this one. Mm-hmm.
It's actually the 24th was the one that attacked in New Hampshire.
Oh, sorry, yeah, the fighting, yeah. So it's
And
the Fighting Ninth that's in
ninth,
this.
There
Yeah,
we go.
there you are. All right.
Okay. So I've got 2-to-1 ratio now.
Yep.
And I've got a my lead unit will be, of course, the 82nd, so that's +1.
The 62nd, yep. Mm-hmm.
62nd, yes. Yours is +2, so you're up on unit by 1.
Yep, correct.
And then I will get Philip's leadership because he's
That's right.
involved. So I will get a +1 for that. So
Gets you
looks
back
like
to
it's
even.
even. Okay.
Now, you do have a situation. It's not going to quite happen here, but you'll see right now with Dearborn, you've got all 6 hexes that are adjacent to Dearborn. You either have units in those hexes or you have zones of control in those hexes. The presence of my unit does not negate zone of control for most purposes in the game. However, it does negate it for one key thing, which is the modifier in combat. There is a close combat modifier if you're completely surrounded by enemy units or zones of control. But
yeah,
for
right.
purposes of that modifier alone, and only that, friendly units do negate Zox for that purpose. So since I have Arnold and the 3rd New Hampshire next to me, I at least am not giving you another modifier for being surrounded.
I see.
But
Okay.
that being the case, Dearborn is still in a precarious position here because he does not have anywhere to retreat right now, anywhere that's in your zone of control. So I'm very much wanting him to hold this hex and not retreat if he has to.
Okay.
So yeah, we've got 2-to-1 even before tactics, I believe we said.
Yes.
All right, and you have a leader right there in the hex with you. I have Arnold next to me, so we both have leadership for tactics, and there is an open flank in 0816. So we both have all 8 tactics available.
All right.
All right, Dearborn, I need you to come up big here, boy. Let's see.
All right. We'll go with this. See what we get.
Okay.
I thought you might. Okay. Get a frontal. So I lose 1.
Frontal to commit is -1. So, all right, that's good for me for sure. I need every modifier I can get.
Yeah. Okay. So 2-to-1 column -1 for my die roll. Big number. Big number. Come on, give me a big 9. 3.
All right, so
I'm pinning you.
3 is a pin. So here's an interesting, decision point for you here. This is, again, remember you have that momentum chit, and you could re-roll this, and you could get something better and capture Dearborn, which would
I
be
never thought about being a game show host.
pretty big. Or, Patrick,
Or-
you could choose door number 2 and take this result and take the pin. And not knowing who's going to have to move next, that pin is going to force all of those units that just participated in this battle to stay right where they are and not retreat and not move. And that may force a lot of interesting attacks. So yeah, I'm glad that happened, because this is a great little decision point for you right here. So yeah, the effects of the pin, just real quick to let everybody know, because it is important. All the units involved, attackers and defenders, get marked with a pin marker, and what that does is you have 2 options for the next player who moves. And again, we don't know who's going to be next, but whoever moves next, they have 2 choices. They can either keep all of those pinned units in place and not move during the movement phase, and then that's going to mean that you're probably going to have to attack, a whole bunch of units. Whoever you're adjacent to, you've got to stay there, so you're going to have to make a bunch of attacks. Or, if you can move so that you are not adjacent to any enemy units, you can break the pin. And what you would do is you would remove the pin marker from all the units that have them, and you would move so that you're not adjacent to any enemy units, even the ones that aren't involved in that pin. If you do that, that costs you 1 army morale to do that. So your army morale marker goes down 1 automatically. And unlike units that are disrupted, you saw how, like, when you rallied that unit, your army morale moved back up. When you break a pin, that's basically an army morale point you can never get back. There's no way to roll anything or rally and move back up again. So that's a permanent hit to your army morale when you do that. So all of those things are things you can keep in mind when you decide if you want to spend momentum right now and possibly get a better result, or, Patrick Pence, stay in place and take a pin.
I think I'm going to stay in place and take the pin, Bob.
You know how much I wanted to just sing the Jeopardy music right there, Patrick. You know how much I did.
Still hurts.
All right.
Mark.
Mark says, good decision, Patrick.
I get a cookie now.
Mark
Hooray.
says you have chosen wisely. Very good. Okay. All right, so we need to put pin markers on here. So if you right-click on the units, I'll put the one on Dearborn for me.
And it's only the one that participated in the fight.
Yeah, all of them. Yeah, for you. So for you, it's, both the 62nd and the 59th, and Phillips as well. He gets one as well, since he was in on it. All right. So we have our little gray borders and that P marker there. That's just a vassal thing again, just to so you don't have to have a marker sitting on top of the unit. It just helps with counter clutter in the vassal
We
module.
appreciate your design considerations.
Oh, well, you're welcome. But if you do prefer the markers, they're up there. You can certainly pull that out as well. All right. So that's the pin.
Okay.
So I believe that is all of your close combats, right?
That is.
Okay. So we've done all that. We've finished that, and that is the end of turn 1.
Okay.
I didn't ask when we got on, Patrick, about time-wise. Are you good to keep playing for a little bit? Do you want to do at least one more turn and see how far we get?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, if we go fast, maybe we'll get through the whole thing. But I'm certainly up for at least playing another turn and seeing what happens next, since we have a perilous situation with Dearborn here. We got to see what happens to him. So, okay, so that's the end of turn 1, which is turn 8 actually on the turn track. But we'll move it up to the next turn, and now it's time to roll for initiative. So here again, Patrick, is your next choice. If you want to spend that momentum to get +2 to your initiative roll, you can do that, and I could absolutely understand why you would want to do that and maybe get the chance to go next here and attack, or you can keep it in your pocket and see what happens.
Really tempting. And we're both going to get +1 anyway, so that's really no factor.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Technically, we're both at +1 our initiative roll, but yeah, since it's even, it's a net even.
Okay, so I would get a net +2.
Right.
Yeah, knowing how I roll dice, I'm gonna spend the momentum chit.
Okay.
So I just flip it over to yours, right? Spend
You
it?
just, hit the spend button. It'll make
Okay.
a note up there that you've done that. All right.
Got
So you are adding 2 to your die roll.
Right, here it goes.
Uh-oh.
Oh
3.
my god.
See?
Oh! All right.
we
So
re-roll.
we tied. So when you tie, you re-roll the dice, and you still get to add your +2, even on the re-roll. So we'll go ahead and roll again.
Again.
And we've tied again. Okay. Let's keep on doing this. This is fun, Patrick.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. 9 this
Oh.
time.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. 2 9s. All right. So you spent that momentum well. So you do end up winning. So let's see. The marker is on the British side. So yeah, you're going to move first, turn 9. All right. So you'll see on the turn there that there are these 2 American reinforcements that come into play. That only happens on my turn. So the reason that's important is, remember, you have these 3 units down here that can move once my reinforcements have come on the board. But
Okay.
since you're moving first here, and I haven't brought them on, those 3 units are still held in
there's no one.
place. So,
Okay.
but I think, given given the situation, it was still probably a good move, and well done on the marker. So I'll clear off the moved dots, and it is your movement phase.
So clearly we need to bring the Fusiliers and Burgoyne up.
Yeah, they are good to participate in combat again now that they've rallied
20.
last turn.
And that's really all my moves because everybody else is still locked. So
Gonna do the full court press here.
we do. All right. So it'd be a 1 to 2 attack if the 20th just went after Arnold himself.
If I can interject one thing, you
please.
look at Hosmer back there. So it is always precarious to have, remember, artillery alone in Hex. And I know you've got units between him and me, so he does have some protection. But just to kind of look ahead, if things were to stay, let's say you attack Arnold's Hex, but he stays where he is. Morgan is a light unit, and you remember how woods are only 1 for light units, so Morgan could, say on my turn, do this. Go 1, 2, 3, 4, and suddenly he's looking at capturing that artillery. So, not saying that's what will happen, but you may want to consider that in terms
So,
of where you put Hosmer there.
Absolutely.
Hey, Rob.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Sorry to bother again.
No, it's okay.
The initiative, when he played that momentum chit, it's only for 1 roll. It's not for every roll.
Well, see, because we tied, you always have to re-roll the ties, and when that happens, you do still get to keep using. You use the
you do?
modifier until you have a decision in the initiative. Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, okay. I didn't,
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
If he had had multiple momentum chits, you
You
can
could-
spend
you would
more
have
than
to-
1. You could have spent
Right,
2
you would have
momentum
to make
chits and had +4 to your roll, and then the final thing, and it doesn't happen often, if you have 3 momentum chits and you really, 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 really want the initiative badly, you can spend all 3 and you automatically win the initiative. There's no roll at all. You're doing pretty well if you get 3 momentum chits, though, so it doesn't happen often, but occasionally it does.
Okay. I think I've moved everybody. I took your advice. I've moved Hosmer up to join the Phillips stack.
He's going to get in there in the fight. Okay. So he will not get to attack, but he will. He will.
Of course. Right.
Yeah.
But he's
sit there.
protected, right? As you say.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. Yep, that all looks good to me. So, rally. You don't have anybody to rally this time because you're good on that again. And there is no defensive artillery again because I don't have any guns in the fight. So we go to rifle fire, and this time, sadly, Morgan is not adjacent to anybody, so I'm not going to have a shot with Morgan this time. So we don't even have any rifle fire. We go right on to close combat.
So it would seem that probably my most, I don't know, the lowest hanging fruit would be the 20th against Arnold, but that's not a great attack. Of course, Phillips is going to go against Dearborn,
Hmm.
and probably bringing the Fusiliers in as well with Burgoyne.
Oh.
And then the other stack, the 9th and the 24th, both reduced, going against New Hampshire.
And remember, you've got diversions as a tool that
Right.
you may
So
well want to use again here.
I could divert to build up the forces and still take the one column shift. So if I could get a 3-to-1 Dearborn, I guess that would make sense, right? To bring it down to 2.
Yeah, I think looking at it, I think kind of similar to your last turn. It would be a very good idea to divert against Arnold,
Okay.
because that's not a good attack, and the more units, Dearborn is the one who's vulnerable right now, right? He's got nowhere to retreat to, so if you get even just a retreat result, is going to end up capturing him. So I'd say the more units you can throw against him, the better.
So why don't we do everybody against Dearborn, and then diversionary tactic, diversionary away from the 3rd New Hampshire and the Arnold stack.
So you can only do one diversion is the problem. Only one
So,
hex can be diverted against. So you do have to attack either Arnold or the 3rd New Hampshire. Yeah.
So then, yeah, let's do the 20th, and of course Phillips and Burgoyne all going against Dearborn, trying to get that 12-3, and then the reduced units will go against New Hampshire.
Okay, so it's the fighting 9th and 24th against 3rd New Hampshire,
Yeah.
and then the other three hexes will all go against Dearborn with a diversion against Arnold.
Yes.
Okay, got it. All right. I'm going to ask you a trick question. Which one do you want to do first, Patrick? Or that's not a trick question. I guess it should be an obvious question.
I'm gonna do the Dearborn one first.
I think
right?
that's a good idea. Absolutely.
All right. So yes, my 4-to-1 becomes a 3-to-1 now because of the diversion. And now leader bonus. Oh, I need to pick my leading unit. So +1 is really the best one. So
Yeah, and actually, going by the sequence too, as soon as you have ended your movement phase, what we can do also is clear off these pin markers, because you've now satisfied the conditions of the pin. And you'll see when you click on them, there's two choices there to break with morale penalty or no penalty. So make sure to choose no penalty, because
sure.
you're not taking one. You've satisfied the conditions very well. Okay.
Okay. So I guess I will make the lead unit to be Burgoyne's Fusiliers.
Okay.
And so again, the lead unit is forced to advance.
Yeah, if you clear out the defender's hex, the lead unit must advance, and then other units, if they're able to, have the option to advance, but they don't have to.
And is that inclusive of the artillery or not?
No,
Okay.
yeah, because the
Right.
artillery does not participate in the attack, so it'd be
So, yeah,
just those
this
infantry.
one, definitely, I want to take Burgoyne as the lead.
Okay,
So, okay.
makes sense. Yep.
All right. So do I get any other close combat modifiers? My lead unit gives me a +1, and a +1 for Burgoyne. So I'm at 2, and you're
Yep.
at 2, right?
That's right. Yep. And yeah, again, I'm able to avoid that surrounded modifier because I've got some friendly units adjacent. So yeah, you're 2 and I'm 2, so we're even before tactics.
Go to the
And this time, we do not have an open flank, because if you look at Dearborn, all 6 hexes adjacent to him are occupied. So we do have leaders adjacent, so we will get 6 of the possible 8 tactics, just not those 2 flanking ones. And if you ever do happen to accidentally pick an illegal tactics chip, if either one of us picked one of those flanking ones now, that's just an automatic -1 or +1, whatever benefits your opponent basically. So that's one thing to be careful not to do. And I think that is another thing that all of us have in fact done in tournament play. So one of those things that's easy to do, especially when you're playing at 11 o'clock at night and have played 4 games already and are dead tired. All right, let's see. Let's pick something here. Let's go with that.
All right. So, a little Fazzini war of wits here. Which one did you pick? Clearly, I can't pick the goblin in front of you. I really like. So, let's do that. Reveal.
Attack an echelon, attack an echelon. All right, that's a 0.
Okay. So, give it right back to me.
So,
Spirited Dearborn. You're gonna
Nope.
name a city after you.
so you got 3 to 1 plus 0.
Okay, 3 to 1 plus 0.
Roll low, Patrick. You can do it.
Lucky F7. Lucky F7.
Come on, Dearborn. Uh-oh.
4.
I think that's probably enough. Yep.
Double
It's a
retreat.
double retreat, so this is where the sequence is very important, because the defender does have to retreat first. So if you had to retreat first, that may be of the possibility that I could have opened up a path, but since I have to go first, I can't go into 3rd New Hampshire's hex, because that's in your zone of control, and I can't go into Arnold's hex, because that's in your zone of control, and all the other 4 are around me, so Dearborn is captured. And that's no good. So I'll put on the capture. That's going to teleport him over to the captured units box that you'll see in the corner there. That just changed our army morales. I lost 1 and you gained 1. And you got a victory point for that. So if you open up the VP window, you'll see that you've got a victory point right now.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sitting on 1 for Freeman's farm, and then that step loss that I caused you is worth half a victory point. But you got my best unit. That was no good. Dearborn is those +2 morale units are generally the best ones in the game. So
And
that
we're going to
definitely.
get back 3, right?
So yeah, we're not done yet though, because
Okay.
you have an attack or retreat result too. So everybody. So first of all, your lead unit must retreat, and he's just retreating 1. This is just 1 hex.
Okay.
Oh yeah, and because well. We'll do that after we've done the retreats. Let's do the retreats here first.
All right. So he would just do that.
Yep, that's good.
Okay.
Now, your other units that participate in the attack, but again, not the artillery, have to roll and see if they retreat or not.
Yeah. Okay. So the 62nd. So he will get a plus. Any pluses for Phillips?
So he gets a +1 for his printed unit morale, and then, yeah, Phillips is going to help him with that +2. That's the middle number.
+3. Here we go. He's okay.
Easy, all right? He stays. And then the 20th.
The 20th is only going to get just their +1.
Right.
And they are also
There you go. So that
Is,
was...
is there a morale chart, or it's always a fixed number?
It's always a fixed number, yeah. It's 5 is what you're looking for, and it's just modifiers that affect that. But it's always 5. 5 or higher. Yep.
All right, thank you.
So, yeah, everybody stayed in place for you, so that was a good result for you. And then, yeah, Mark pointed out the final benefit for you is because Dearborn's a +2 unit, whenever you capture a unit that has a +2 printed unit morale, that's a momentum chit for you. So you just got back that momentum chit that you spent. So that was shows you the cascading effects of using a momentum chit. Sometimes it gets you a benefit that in turn gets you more benefits. So that worked out really well for you.
okay. Well, then the last attack there is.
And then, yeah, the final thing after all this is because you have cleared out my hex. There's no defender in 916. For your 2 units, the ones that you had to roll for, since they passed those morale checks, they now have the option to advance into the hex if you want to. It's not required. And of course, again, you can't take those artillery units with you if you do it. But know that you do have the option to do that if you want to.
No, I think they'll stand.
Okay, that's probably a good choice. Well, I don't know. I guess I could see maybe the 62nd moving up there wouldn't be the end of the world.
True.
Yeah, it actually there may be some reasons why you want to, but yeah, just right. You've got the option to do it now if you want to.
No, I'm gonna play a little conservative.
Hang where you are. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then yeah, the other one. So then the 3rd New Hampshire.
The 4 to 3. You're gonna get a +1. I'm gonna get nothing. And I think that's it, right?
Yeah, we don't have any leaders, and again, no terrain, and we're still both good on our army morale. Isn't affecting any of these unit morales, so looks like a 1-to-1 -1 before tactics.
And does it matter which one is the leader on that one? I mean,
It does, yeah. You do still. Well, I mean, they're both the same, so I guess functionally it won't. But you do need to designate one of them as being your lead
So the
unit.
Fighting Ninth will be the leader on that one.
That's probably a good choice. Any unit that has fighting in its name, that should be the lead unit, right?
All right.
Okay. So we'll pick up tactics, and I have a leader adjacent, but you don't. So, and we do have an open flank. So again, I've got all 8, but you have the basic 4 to choose from.
Okay.
All right. Oh, interesting. There comes the withdraw chit. All right. Let me see here. So you're the attacker withdrawing, and I chose commit reserve, so it's a 0. So you don't get to withdraw. Although that would have been, that would have been not a bad outcome there if you had thrown that. That was definitely one of those cases where you got to always think about, keeping units out of trouble, maybe getting them a chance to pull them back. So good idea, but didn't work out in this case. So
That's okay.
all right. So you got a 1-to-1 -1.
1-to-1, and yes, okay, -1. Here we go. Ooh,
Oh,
-1.
that's not going to help.
That's my rolling, baby.
So that is a -1. So it's a step loss. And then that asterisk, it's a good thing you did not have a leader here, because if you did have a leader, that leader would be dead. That's what that asterisk means. So
the dying 9th is...
you do get to avoid the worst of the results.
Now, I could use my momentum chip here.
Yes, you can. Yeah, you do have
So
that momentum chat.
I believe I am going to spend that momentum.
Gonna spend it here? All right. That's not a bad idea, because you can't do worse than a 0, so...
Here we go, -1.
Oh, look at that. Now you're talking. Your momentum chits are paying off handsomely for you here.
You retreat.
So, a defender retreat. Yep. All right. So I've got a backup. So let me see here. This is the top of the turn. I know I am going to move next, so I don't have to worry quite as much about units being left unsupported. So I think I will send him back there.
Obligated to take the hex.
Okay. And yeah, your lead unit must, and then the 24th has the option to join him if you want to.
Ah, wow. Yeah, we don't really want them out there by themselves facing Arnold, do we?
And you
Now, defensive fire would or would not get it with adjacent units. They would, right? For artillery?
You're saying for, like, for Spangenberg?
Right. If Spangenberg was there, but he can't move forward anyway.
No, you can't. You're right, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think I'm gonna keep... I'll just move the Fighting 9 forward. That's
Okay. All right.
But you also have that artillery is going to be defensive fire, and you
Right.
have a line of sight to Arne.
Yeah, you do right now. So yeah, we may finally get some artillery shots here next turn. We probably will. So yeah, we'll see.
I believe that is everything for me.
So yeah, that was the 2 combats. So that is it. We'll move it down here to the bottom half of the turn for the Americans.
Quick move.
So I've got 2 units that are going to come in as reinforcements here. I'll click on them. It's going to send them there. They come in right where you see them there. So, got a few units coming up to help. They're not going to be able to get into the fight this turn, though, because they're too far away. So, I am definitely, I'd say, finding myself a little bit on the defensive right here, having lost my best unit, and I at least would like to maybe reestablish a line. And I guess the question for me is, do I want to try and stay up there and defend Freeman's farm that I'm getting that victory point for? Or back off and maybe pull out of trouble a little bit. And I think...
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Those guys down in the bottom, 1629 and what is it, 14? I can't remember, 15, 20, whatever. Aren't they? Would they be moving in turn 2?
So, for the 3 front units, the Jaegers, the Earl Valkyries, and the Grenadiers, those guys get to move after American reinforcements first show up. So on Patrick's next move,
next turn.
he's gonna on his next turn that he gets to move. So it's right after this. Since or no, sorry, we're at the bottom of the turn. So yeah, we don't know who's moving next, but whenever Patrick gets to move next, he is going to be able to move those 3 units. Yeah. All right. So I think I'm. Let's see. I think what I'll do with Morgan here, gonna take advantage of the fact that he can go through the woods a little bit. So he's gonna move like this. He'll go 1, 2, 3 into the woods, and again that's only 1 movement point because he's light. And zones of control, I think we said in the beginning, do not extend into woods. They only extend out of them into clear hexes, but they don't extend into them. So for example, right here, the Fighting Ninth doesn't have a zone of control into 914, where Morgan is right now. If it did, Morgan would have to stop right here. But since there isn't there, Morgan can keep moving. He's got 1 more movement point, so I'm going to go ahead and move him right there. Now, unlike before, remember with Morgan, his ability is that if there's an artillery unit in his zone of control, he prevents that artillery from firing. Spangenberg, though, is in woods, so Morgan doesn't have a zone of control into Spangenberg's hex. So Spangenberg, in fact, can still, you are going to be able to take an artillery shot with him.
Great.
But anyway, Morgan will go there, and let's see, I think we'll, we'll just back up like so with Arnold, and temporarily vacate Freeman's farm, having liberated the poor Freemans from the oppression of British rule. You're welcome, Freemans. Okay.
They're not Tories. Come on.
All right. So that's and I think Cook is going to stay where he is, and then my reinforcements. Don't want to forget to move them. Like I said, they can't quite make it up there into this battle, but let's see. I'm going to go ahead with starting out with 2nd New York. That's half 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4. That's a pretty good place for them to end, because now they're kind of in line. They're supporting Morgan a little bit, so in case you get to attack next, you've got some more units to deal with here. So I think that's a good place for them, and the 4th New York will do the same. All right, so that is my movement. I will keep Cook's militia sitting there. He's fine, so that's it for movement for me. All right, rally phase. I have no rallies to do. And then defensive artillery. So you now have Spangenberg that has an eligible target to shoot at. It isn't going to be a great shot, but it is a shot.
Sure. It is Arnold. Right. Artillery. Just hit.
So, yeah, in terms of line of sight, I know we said terrain blocks line of sight. I don't think we said units do block line of sight as well. So the Fighting Ninth is going to block his line of sight to Arnold, so you don't have line of sight to Arnold.
Okay.
And let's see, you're not going to have line of sight to 3rd New Hampshire, because, yeah, that line of sight is blocked by Morgan in the woods and the Fighting Ninth on the other side. But Spangenberg can see Morgan. It looks like that's the only, for him, that's his only choice. He can see Morgan, but nobody else.
So it is 1 piece adjacent, 1 strength point. So I need a 7, but target is light, right?
Correct.
So
Yep.
up to 6. He's in a forest, so it comes down to 5.
Well, those are you need to roll higher than this number
Oh,
to
I
hit.
see.
So
I see.
you're going to
Unfortunately.
end up with a -2 to your roll. So in effect, you're going to need a 9. Only a 9 will do it for a hit. Yeah.
Only a 9 will do, eh?
Mm.
I like those odds.
And how many times have we said, "Oh, he'll only hit on a 9. What could go wrong?" And then what does he roll?
So Jones and Hosmer will also have. I
Yeah,
got
that's right. Yeah, we said Spangenberg, and then Jones definitely has line of sight. And then, yeah, where's Hosmer? Oh, he's there with Phillips. So
Yeah.
if you
And-
draw, there is a line of sight tool in the module you can use to draw. If you draw that, yeah, looks like he's definitely got line of sight to Arnold.
They
So
shoot together, but they take the farthest range, right?
yeah, that's right. So when you're doing this, you do have a choice there with those 2 artillery units. Whenever if you want to use more than 1 artillery unit, so say you want to take Jones and Hosmer, they can both gang up and fire on 1 unit. You always target a unit, not a hex, but you pick a
Right.
specific unit. So you could have those 2 fire at different units. You could split them up between, say, the 1st and 2nd New Hampshire, or you could have them both fire at just one of those. But yeah, when there's a difference in range, you always go with what's worse. So it would be 3 hexes in that
3 of
case.
them,
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll start with Spangenberg. So, like you said, I need a 9 to do anything to Scrappy Morgan.
Right.
So, here's my roll of 9.
Oh, getting close, but not quite.
That's right. Showered him with wood chips. Okay. So, in the case of Hosmer and Jones, I will fire them together.
Okay.
They will target the 2nd New Hampshire,
Okay.
and they're going to get 3 total, right?
Yep.
So-
3 strength points firing.
And any modifiers? I don't see any.
And yeah, in this case, the range doesn't really hurt you because 2 to 3 X is the same thing. So the base is 7 to hit, and then yeah, there won't be any modifiers. None of those apply.
7 or better. Here we go.
Oh,
Unfortunately, the other way around.
whizzes by.
Okay. What's
All
up?
right, no artillery, as in the cannonball
artillery.
whizzes by, but no
Fine.
defect. All right, so nothing from artillery. So on to rifles. So Morgan is back in range, so he does have a rifle shot. So he's got some choices of who to shoot at. Well, his best shot is definitely at the fighting ninth, because there won't be a woods modifier there. The other thing I'm thinking about, though, is that I have a pretty good attack against the fighting ninth with my other units that are adjacent, and I'm not so sure I want the fighting ninth to retreat, which could happen if I take that rifle shot at him. So I think I'm going to go ahead and actually not shoot at him and take a worse shot. I will shoot at Spangenberg at the artillery. See if I can chase him away.
Okay.
So, I am 2 strength points adjacent. Back again, looking at the 2-hit table. It's a 6 to hit. I'm going to get -1 because I'm shooting at a forest, but +1 for the artillery, since he's an artillery. So that cancels out. So I'm at a net 6 to hit. Here's the roll. And a 7. That's a hit. Alright, so now we get to go over to the rifle fire damage table. And there's 2 columns here, just make sure you're looking at the right one. This is versus artillery, so I will roll to see what the result is versus artillery. It's a 1, which is a retreat, so Spangenberg just has to retreat. 1 hex. Okay. Alright, so we did get him out of the way. I guess that's never a bad thing for me to get the artillery further away from my guys. So that is everybody for rifles, and now we've got close combat. So, so I think what I'm going to do here, and there are options here again that are all kind of based on whether Morgan participates in this or not. Oh, Chris is asking about what the asterisk is for on that rifle fire damage. So that asterisk is the same as on the close combat. That asterisk means a leader loss. So if I had gotten that and there was a leader in the hex I was just shooting at, that would mean the leader's dead.
Blow up the powder magazine too.
Yeah, so you always have to be careful when you have leaders that are adjacent to rifles or artillery. And these tables are actually different. One of the things you notice over all the games in the series, if you have all the games, take a look at the rifle and artillery damage tables. They're not the same across the series. In this one, if you look at that, you see that asterisk result is present in both the artillery damage table and the rifle damage table. But they can vary a little bit, so just another thing to keep in mind. So for me, for looking at close combats, I have to decide, am I going to use Morgan in these or not? Because he's a rifle unit, he is not required to participate in close combat. And I think for me it's going to be better if he doesn't. So what I'm going to say is Morgan doesn't have to attack the 24th, so that takes care of him. And then what I'm going to do is have all of Arnold's guys and the 3rd New Hampshire attack the fighting 9th. But Morgan isn't going to participate in that either. So that will cover all of the units that I'm required to attack. So I've got 8 total strength to your 2, so it's 4-1. And I will use let's use the 3rd New Hampshire as my lead unit. You, of course, have to use fighting 9th, so you're 0, so I'm at a net +1 so far on modifiers for my unit morale. Arnold is stacked with units that are attacking, so I get to have his +2 on that, so I'm up to +3 so far. And that should be it. I don't see any other modifiers that apply. So, Roberto, I'm not doing a diversion here. This is one of the key things for that rifle unit. He's not diverting, he's just not attacking at all, which he can do since he's a rifle unit. If he weren't a rifle unit, if he were a normal unit, then you're right, I would have to divert against the 24th and able to do this the way I'm doing it. But I'm using his rifle abilities by saying that he's just not attacking at all.
Okay.
So I do get to have this as a 4-1 attack, and it looks like it's +3 before tactics. And I have a leader and an open flank, but you do not have a leader. So I've got the 8 shits to choose from, and you have the 4.
Choose wisely, grasshopper.
We must avenge, Dearborn. That's what we are yelling in battle here as we try to salvage this.
Go with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Turn flank to attack is a +1.
Okay.
So that's going to make it a 4-1 +4. Which is a good attack for me. So let's see if we can make the most of it. Alright, here's the roll. Oof. And a 9.
Yikes.
Ouch. Alright. So it's a 2-step loss result. If you had 2 steps to give, you would have to take 2 steps, which all units only have a max of 2, so that would eliminate him. Now he's already on his flip side at the fighting 9th, so it ends up you only take the worst result you can. So it in effect is a 1-step loss result, which means that you don't your army morale only moves down by 1 instead of what is it, the 2 that it would normally if it were a step loss, or a 2-step loss.
Eliminated.
So he's eliminated, and then also if you look at that circle that's on the 11 row, that circle means that I get a momentum. So I will now happily take a momentum chit and add that, so I can use that in the future. So that takes care of the result, and then the hex has been vacated, so I must advance with the 3rd New Hampshire. He'll move in there. Now my other guys have to. I'm kind of looking at Let's see, this is the bottom half of the turn, so we don't know who's going to get to move next. And, well, let's see, I think having Arnold kind of close there to the middle is not a bad idea. So I think what I'll do is take the first New Hampshire and Arnold are going to advance into there, like so. So they'll be stacked up in the middle.
That's a very impressive little battle line you got there.
So, after losing Dearborn, we have closed ranks on the 100 yards or so that used to be occupied by Dearborn's regiment that's now a gaping hole, and dress things up a little bit. Alright, so that was my only combat, and that's the end of turn 9. What do you think? Do you want to play another turn? Are you good here, or what do you think?
Well, as exciting as this has been, I think it's probably best to leave it with a cliffhanger.
We can always save it here, and we can do part 2 of a
could.
demo if everybody wants to. Yeah, I mean, if there's interest in it, we could always do that. But yeah, it is 10 o'clock. It's probably a good wrapping up point. But that was good. Yeah, we got to see a lot of possibility results there from it. Chris, yeah, my morale did. The thing is that it went back up again because of some of these other results that happened. Like when I just caused him that step loss, that puts my morale back up. So I've in effect been able to recover what was lost from Dearborn. So at the moment, if we look at Army morale, just kind of where things are standing, yeah, I'm maxed out at 15, so I'm in a very good place. And Patrick, I mean, you're at 13, which is, in the middle of that high morale, but you're still good. Yeah, I mean, you would have to take 3 more negative morale losses before you would start to suffer negative effects from that. So while you're not at the best place, you're certainly, you don't have to worry about Army morale yet. So
and you have those units that are going to move. So
Right.
just for the fun of it, let's roll initiative.
Oh, yeah.
Let's just see who would be moving next to see what would happen.
Okay.
So I would get the next. So all right. So I might be thinking, yep, I'm on the attack now here. I'm looking like that 24th regiment's a little vulnerable, and I may even set things up to hit Spangenberg and capture him. Who knows?
But wouldn't you be a little nervous about those units coming up on the side there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now I know your Jaegers and Earl Valkyries and Grenadiers they're free, so I definitely have to look at them. And the thing with the double move is, too, once you get it, you're setting up the other guy. Now he has the potential for a double move, right? So if you do take that double move, you always want to think, if I'm going to take this, I got to really hit him hard and make the most of it, because if I don't, he might get the next double move and then hit me back just as hard, too.
Yeah, and he has light units, so he can run through the woods pretty easily.
Yeah. That really comes into play. It doesn't in all the games, but in Saratoga especially, because there's so many woods hexes on this map. You see how those light units really, if they do nothing else in the game, just the fact that they can zip through those woods at one movement point apiece, it really makes you think. And, as tempted as you are sometimes, like I'm tempted right now to really hit the 24th and maybe even go adjacent to Spangenberg and hit him. But if I do that, where is that gonna? I'm gonna have to advance into Spangenberg's hex, and then I'm gonna be maybe letting myself get surrounded. So there's always that give and take, and that's one of the fun things I think that people enjoy about this series, is thinking about all those those little tactical details, and is the reward worth the risk? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate going through this again tonight.
That was fun.
It was completely. It seemed like it was, literally brand new to me. Just with the focus on the Freeman farm. When I played this before, and we started at turn 1, and you're racing down the Hudson, and coming through the woods, and there's all that setup time. This is neat. It's really neat to just have the concentration of just back and forth immediately before turns.
Yeah, it is, and yeah, if you are looking to learn the system, you could not make a worse choice than starting with this scenario, because yeah, you're right. You can get into the action right away. There's not that many units to deal with, so you make a few choices, but you're not, perplexed by looking at these, hordes of units and trying to figure out what to do with them all. just a small number of choices, but gives you a good feel for the flavor of the system. And then once you're comfortable with that, you can go on to the bigger scenarios. So
we're going to be playing both sides in the tournament.
yeah, so for everybody who is in the tournament for round one, what we're going to do, we're essentially combining round 1 and 2 into one continuous round. So whichever, you don't have to worry about bidding for sides or anything in this one. What you'll do is just mutually agree on which side you want to play first, and you'll play the scenario to completion, record the result, send that to me, and then switch sides and play the other side. So for the first 2 rounds, that will constitute that. And then for rounds 3 and 4, we'll work our way up.
It goes from August to September or something. I don't have the email in front of me.
Oh yeah, I'll pull up the schedule here. So yeah, we're going to allow a few months at least for the first 2. So we're going to say from August 1st to for 1 month to be able to.
Right.
For a month and a half, it's to September 13th is the deadline for these first 2 rounds.
Okay.
That might not sound like much, but again, this one plays really quickly when there's only 4 turns. So
so it'll be by you can either do voice or you can play by email depending on the person.
Yep, and I'll put out an email that too when we have the matchups. But yeah, you can either play live like we are here, or if you can play quick enough, you can play by email. And normally a month and a half would be maybe pushing it for 2 email games, but I don't think that's out of the question since again it's such a short scenario. So long as you finish by September 13th, yeah, you can play either way, live or email.
Okay. All right.
And if anyone is listening or watching this after the fact, yeah, if anybody is interested in this tournament, I will say, the tournament is very much, we're trying to make this very beginner friendly. We have a lot of experienced players in the tournament who can help teach you. Everybody I know from the names who've signed up, the experienced players will all be very happy to teach you as you go along.
Just don't ask me to die roll.
Yeah, you may not win a bunch. You may take your lumps along the way, but you can absolutely. I'm sure everybody's going to be happy to help out, and I'm always going to be available to help people if they've got rules questions or anything like that. But if you want to join the tournament, if you're interested in at the worst, at a minimum, you're going to get 4 games out of it because we have 4 preliminary rounds. Like we said, the first 2 here are this scenario from Saratoga. Round 3 is Utah Springs. Round 4 is the historical scenario from Rhode Island, which is kind of the thing I'm looking forward to. I think I saw in the GMT email today it is shipping now. I think it's just started shipping, so we should be getting that in our hands soon. And this will be the first time we get to play it in competitive play. So, and for most of us, it'll be the first time ever playing it. So, yeah, looking forward to that. But if anybody's interested, please get in touch with me. You can I've posted on Consim World and Board Game Geek and Facebook. You can post there. You can send an email to the tournament address, which is boargm2020@gmail. So you can let me know that way, or comment here on the YouTube recording, wherever, if you want to get on into it. There is still time. We're going to take sign-ups right up until we start playing, basically on August 1st. So there is still time to join if you're interested. And beginners, experienced players, anybody's welcome, by all means.
All right, Bob, good night. I'm going to hit the sack.
Okay, yeah, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm glad I could be a sparring partner for you. And,
Yeah.
hopefully this will be of benefit to people. So.
No, I think it was very good, and I'll get that recording up there. Yeah, if you do want to finish this out in the future, or if you want to play anything else, by all means, let me know.
Sounds good. All right. Well,
Okay.
I look forward to it. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks a lot, Patrick. Good night, everyone.
Night.